In life, as in sports, sometimes there are stories that are deliberately forgotten, and the more they have struck us perhaps for their cruelty, the less we would like to remember them. The story I am about to tell you is precisely one of these. Welcome to the story of one of the great promises of motorsport who met an atrocious death on the track, the story of the driver Helmut Koenig. This story begins in the immediate post-war period. It is 1948 in Vienna, Helmut Koenig's hometown. Compared to many, Helmut is a lucky boy because he is the son of an upper-middle-class family, and this will allow him not to have to decide immediately what his future will be. Since he was a teenager, Helmut has always been very interested in speed and car racing. But not only that, because he discovers that being a boy in Vienna in the late 60s also means enjoying the sexual revolution, rock music, and everything that was a bit reckless in those years. So, at the beginning, he dedicates himself much more to girls than to racing. In fact, he has a fair amount of success as a playboy, let's put it that way. But his desire to race became increasingly intense, and so in 1969 he decided to take all his savings and buy his first racing car, a Mini Cooper S. And he bought it from a young driver who would soon make headlines, Nicholas Andreas Lauda. And with Niki Lauda's Mini, he began taking part in the first races, winning some regional formulas and immediately proving to be very competitive and incredibly fast. So much so that the press began to talk about this young national talent. But young Helmut also needed sponsors to be able to continue and aim high in his motorsport career, and at this point a namesake named Helmut Marko stepped in, a former Formula One driver who, after a very serious accident, now dedicated himself to being a talent scout. Marko introduced him to Formula V and got him a contract first with McNamara Racing in '70, where he proved to be absolutely competitive, and then he would settle in the great Bergman team. Racing in the '71 championship, he came third, then in '72 he came second, and finally the following year he won the Formula V championship and was also called by Ford to race in some Ford covered wheel formulas. So his career seemed to take off. The press dedicated itself to him, and the first sponsors noticed him and were finally ready to fork out some money. 1974 arrived. Helmut King finally landed the 24-man with a Porsche team, and in the most popular endurance race of all time the Austrian proved to be a solid, very fast and very competent driver. Unfortunately, however, after only 8 hours the car broke down and his team had to withdraw from the competition. But the Helmut Lehmann Koenig put himself in the spotlight, and from a potential talent he became a real promise of motorsport, and so there were new sponsors ready to support him for the next step. His entry into the world of Formula One at last. And without further ado, on the occasion of his home Grand Prix at the Strassingring, Koenig rented an old Bram from Team Finauto to line up for the qualifying of the Grand Premium. Unfortunately, the single-seater was a bit patched up, not in good condition, and was certainly an outdated car that did not allow him to qualify for the Grand Prix. But his tenacity in qualifying got him noticed by John Curtis, who called him to drive 2 Grand Prix of the season, the Canadian Grand Prix and then the United States Grand Prix on the Watkins Glen track. For the young Austrian it was a dream come true. He could finally have a car worthy of being called such and compete with the new great talents of Formula One, the likes of Niki Lauda, James Sohn, Fittipaldi, Rootman and Stur, a generation of young up-and-coming drivers who were already changing the face of Formula One. And on the Canadian track, on his debut, he did not disappoint at all, because he managed to place a Surtees in 10th position. He finished the race without any problems and proved to be a fast and competitive driver. Helmut received compliments from the press and aroused the interest of some other Formula One teams, so now he was determined to give his best in the following race at Watkins Glen on October 6, 1974. The Grand Prix of the United States was held on the New York circuit, but the memory of Sever's death was still fresh in their minds, who had died the previous year during qualifying in a horrific accident. But for every driver who raced in Formula One in those years, the thought of death had to be pushed away. It was not taken into consideration. You had to think you could win a race and get to the finish line safely, otherwise it would have been a no-go. The Grand Prix is a very important race for the Formula One World Championship. For the first time, McLaren has the chance to win the first Constructors' title and also the Drivers' title, because if Fittipaldi manages to make a decisive move here, he could be crowned world champion for the second time. But before we continue, guys, I'll take a few seconds to tell you about our first official video partner, NordVPN, the cybersecurity expert. Surfing the web has become a daily activity for everyone. You're surfing the internet to watch this video, but sometimes it can have some nasty surprises in store. There are many threats in cyberspace, and if you're not adequately protected, your data can fall into the hands of malicious people. So how can you protect yourself? With NordVPN, you can surf the web while keeping your IP address anonymous and protect your personal data from space-saving attacks. So you can still take advantage of the spring promotion for 2 weeks, which gives you a 73% discount and 3 months free on 2-year plans. Look for the link in the description and go check it out. Always protect yourself with NordVPN. And now let's get back to us. The only other team still starting the championship is Ferrari, with Lauda and Regazzoni, who will have to do their best to limit the damage. Helmut Koenig is not the only rookie driver in this Grand Prix. Koenig, who had a small gearbox problem during the qualifying session, will only be able to line up on the 10th row. In pole position we will find Carlos Reutemann alongside James Honte, then Carlos Pace, and gradually Lauda and the other drivers in contention for the World Championship will emerge. The race starts regularly without incident. Reutemann remained in front, and behind him there began to be a fight between Lauda, Fittipaldi, Scheckter and other drivers who wanted to climb back to China, while poor Helmut Koenig was still in 20th position. Everything went smoothly for the first 9 laps of the Grand Prix. Helmut maintained 20th position and hoped to be able to recover, but at the start of the 10th lap something happened that not all the drivers were able to notice in real time. At turn number 7, not one of the fastest on the track, Koenig's STIS suddenly broke the suspension and the car was catapulted straight off the road, crashing into the guardrail at a fairly moderate speed. From a distance the marshals breathed a sigh of relief because it seemed like a completely routine accident, but it was not. The impact of the car against the rail, which was made up of 3 metal strips bolted together, caused the lower strip to come loose and bend, becoming like a razor-sharp blade. A blade that in a split second cleanly severs Koenig's head from his neck like a guillotine. The helmet with Koenig's head inside bounces off the asphalt and stops a few meters away near a wheel that had come off the car during the impact. The first marshal to arrive at the scene of the crash immediately picks up the helmet to bring it closer to the car, but he immediately realizes that it is too heavy, so he glances over and sees Keong's face stuck inside the shape, his eyes still wide with terror. With great composure he takes a deep breath, approaches the wreckage of the car and covers it with a sheet along with the helmet, so that no one on the trackside can see the tragedy. The seriousness of the accident will be kept secret until after the Grand Prix award ceremony, which in any case will award Emerson Fittipaldi his 2nd world title with 4th place. In short, in order not to disturb the festive atmosphere, the announcement of Keong's death will be made many hours after the end of the Grand Prix. All in the name of entertainment and with the desire to forget one of the most shocking and cruel tragedies to have struck the world of Formula One. And while many other drivers who died in motorsport are venerated as martyrs, Helmut preferred to be forgotten once and for all. But thanks also to you, perhaps at least today it won't be like that. Thank you and see you next time.